Namaste, viewers. Welcome to Jaipur Dialogue USA. I've been live on Jaipur Dialogue India as well. So, to begin with, my sincere apologies for the delay in starting the program for the simple reason that Kapil Mishra ji pulled back. He sent me a message that he's running temperature fever. So, while I was waiting for him to come in, I saw the comments posted here by many viewers, and thank you for sharing your thoughts. I like the aggression. I like the expression of thought that many of you felt that Kapil Mishra ji was not being fair, and the kind of comments that you posted about him. So be that as it may, I will come to that issue very quickly, but let me express my deepest gratitude to Aabhas Madhariya ji. Aabhas ji, thank you very much for stepping in at the last moment. And I'm glad that I had given you a warning to that effect only yesterday. That, sometimes in the live shows, sometimes people may have an emergency or something and the show must go on. So thank you very much from the bottom of my heart, personally, and on behalf of Jaipur Dialogue USA, to join in a little bit late. Thank you very much.
It's all my pleasure, Vibhuti ji. I'm glad to be here, and of course, the subject which we are gonna discuss, it's something which must go on and on. It shouldn't be interrupted for any reason. So yeah, here I
Brilliant.
am.
Thank you very much. So, all the viewers, let me begin by this conversation and request please subscribe both Jaipur Dialogue and Jaipur Dialogue USA, share and like and ring the bell icon. So, with this, let's begin the process. This particular topic that came, which you see here on the screen, dismantling global Islamic terrorism, is something that I tweeted. I tweeted soon after the agenda of dismantling global Hindutva came on the screen, which we came to know about it. And I immediately tweeted that it's time for us to hold a global dismantling global Islamic terrorism and seek the co-sponsorship of the same universities who had done this, co-sponsored in the name of academic freedom. So when freedom is abused, you have to protect the freedom. That's the important part. And to that end, I'm glad this particular session that I set it up, I was hoping Kapilji will come, and but you are here. So as the saying goes, you are not the substitute batsman, you are the replacement batsman for the day today. So Avazji, once again, the deepest gratitude to you for coming. But let's talk about this. Uh, this dismantling Hindu part of it was remarkable because of one reason. And I'm reading this to you here that Professor Trushke, she was the one who tweeted after this agenda of this dismantling global Hindutva was set up, in which she said, do consider attending to learn more about the threat and power of Hindutva in our world. That triggered me. Threat and power. I thought that the Hindus are the most peace loving immigrants anywhere in the world. We are the least problem on the law and order front anywhere in the world. We immediately comply and adjust with whichever country we go in. So, how could we be a threat? And talking about the power, what power do we have? I mean, in terms of driving a narrative, we don't even assert ourselves. We don't even talk about ourselves. So, where does the threat and power of Hindutva that frightened Audrey Trushke to install a program called Dismantling Global Hindutva? Share your thoughts about this, because I know one thing for sure, that the law of unintended consequences played a role here. It has united all Hindus all over the world because we are not a threat to anyone and we don't wield or use power in a negative way to affect anybody anywhere.
Yeah. So this was certainly very interesting the way the things actually unfolded because the August of 15, the auspicious day for us, the thing happened. The Taliban takeover is complete, and the in fact this subject is also announced that we are going to have a conference called Dismantling Global Hindutva. Now, this really, I always try to trace the everything with respect to the historical pattern and how the thing have emerged in the past. And coming, I will definitely come back to Andre Tuske, that what she is and why she might have done this. That because many people might be thinking, like most of the fence sitters would be having a belief that perhaps she is trying to attack Hindutva and not Hinduism, because many people still live with the delusion that Hinduism and Hindutva can be separated, and those two are completely different facades, and perhaps they both facades don't look upon each other at all. But the truth is something otherwise. But before I go into the Andre Truske issue, just if I set the premise very correctly, uh, Andre Truske is just one of the foot soldiers for this whole phenomenon called the white man's burden. It all comes up with the idea of the Westerners' responsibility that hey, we are gonna be there to tell you that how the world is gonna live by and how to civilize the world. And if we just go back a bit into the history, like we all are going to be talking about 9/11 also very soon and so on some of the platform. But again, when 9/11 happened, just 2 years before it, uh, Osama bin Laden had sent out the letter of jihad to United States of America. Those letters of jihad had categorically quoted from the holy book of the Muslims, that is the Quran, and it had also cited a few things from Hadith.
Right.
So after 9/11 happened, the president of United States of America goes on to coin the term Islamophobia. That is from where the term comes in. So a guy demolished the building, caused the havoc, the terrorist havoc in the name of Islam, and
Right.
here is one of our president who actually is the one who saw it happening, goes on
Right.
to say that there's a Islamophobia which has taken, and then down the line the whole a whole lot of stupid things started happening. It was about wearing hijab and showing solidarity with the a lot of US politicians went on to in the Muslim ceremonies and they started wearing hijab, and all this narrative began that misinterpretation of Quran, they are misinterpreting it wrong way, true Quran is not bad, and all those things started happening. So that was the premise, and after that just a lot of things happened in India. Just 7 years after that, we saw the Mumbai attack. And Mumbai attack, they had almost framed the thing of called Hindu terror. Had this guy Kasab not been caught the way he had to be, perhaps the narrative would have been definitely weighted the way they wanted. RSS, Bajrang Dal, and every organization would have been declared Hindu terror organization, and this deliberately is done to legitimize the parties like Taliban, etc. Because it is based on narrative that terrorism has no religion. So when you book all the books, whether you pick the books of the Christians, you pick the book of the Islamists or whoever, you'll find certain element of terrorist activities. But you pick any book of Hinduism, it will never talk about terrorism. So only way to legitimize those guys is by delegitimizing the idea of Hindutva. Because and I always relate it with the arms dealer industry, because the arms dealer industry can't rely upon the normal battles like Kargil, but it relies upon the insurgencies, whether it's the Taliban issue or it's gonna be in Kashmir. That's the food of this arms dealers, and I always believe in the concept of a dubious nexus of the unholy trinity of the three guys who are actually churning this on. And on this Andre Tuske, on all are just they will come and go, but this phenomenon will keep on going, and someday someone like Andre Tuske will keep on evolving onto the to do the job what they want to do.
That's so very well put. The point of the matter remains is that, this is living abroad gives us a perspective in the sense that we are living that life every day here. 9/11 was an important day for all of us, everywhere in the world. If you look at the situation then and now, it is something like, I experienced it. I was going to be there in the World Trade Center Marriott Hotel for a breakfast meeting with a client who came from London. For some reason or the other, the meeting was postponed by 2 hours. The rest is history. I was sitting in my house waiting to catch the next train, and my wife called me to say, Vibhuti, planes have hit the World Trade Center. I thought it was a helicopter thing that hit, or some, the tourist helicopter hit. But when I came up and I saw, I was stunned. I was immobilized because I was going to be there. But be that as it may, this is not about me, but it's a bigger thought. And you articulated it very well that the President of the United States began to talk about Islamophobia. People began to talk about that it is a religion of peace. And I noticed a trend which is definitely disconcerting. Why are the Western leaders, the democracies of the world, India included, we bent backwards to pander, appease the same group of people who have been launching attacks one after another in history and even today? Why are we bending backwards? And that's what is important for us to address, because we can't begin the dismantling. If there's anything that needs dismantling and refixed, as we used to do as a kid in school, we used to dismantle our cycle and put it back together. If there is anything that needs to be dismantled and refixed, is Islam. But nobody is talking about it. The moment you talk about it, you have attack on you as a very targeted, vicious attacks that you are Islamophobic and we are vicious. So, when different religious disguises are used by both Christianity and Islam, they are the ones who are fighting the jihad and crusade. We are caught in the crossfire. My question is, what about Hinduism and Hindutva uh, is so frightening to these people that people are talking about dismantling us? We are fine as we are.
Yeah. Yeah, so actually, if one really looks into the profile of the people, and if we just say for per se, we just pick Andre Trotsky per se, that whether because we spoke about Hinduism and Hindutva, and also I see a problem because certain people have this idea that because Hinduism is different from Hindutva, as I stated earlier. So perhaps this
Yeah.
might be a thing about the in the right direction, because not many. This has essentially been a problem of the people in Asia, especially whether we have not been so connected with our civilization, and we really lack an understanding of the lexicon and the vocabularies and the kinds of mentals are full of a thing in a wrong direction. And this also has happened. But if we just look at the works of Andre Ruske per se, and she runs the PR agency of Aurangzeb, right? It doesn't matter that whether Aurangzeb wouldn't have liked her PR, because Aurangzeb wouldn't have been happy the way she has been projecting him as, right? Because he wanted to be known as a tyrant. Of course, that's why that's how the literature of him talk about it. So now Fatwa Alamgiri especially talks a lot about the sex slavery. There are a few essential points where the Muslim gets the right to buy their own slaves. They can have their slaves. There is a criteria how the sex slaves are to be taken, who are to be. There's certain procedure, and Fatwa Alamgiri literally talks about it, and these all things are on record. Now, Andre Tuske then goes on to write an article. It happened long back where she compared the situation of Nirvaya with that of Draupadi. And she said that in Hinduism, made a case that Hinduism or Hindu faith has always been about the oppression of the female woman. And so that's why she chose the case of Draupadi. Now, had she been on the side of Hinduism, forget the Hindutva for the while, she wouldn't have maligned the book, the great book of Mahabharata or one of the Itihasa, which happens to be one of the principal ideas behind how a dharmic ways are to go on. Now she maligns it. Now, if she has got so much vitriol against the Hinduism, right, then and she's comparing the whole Indic civilization as something which has been so bad against a female. The rapes have been the culture of our tradition, and she then goes on to quote the statistics and so on. Because again, the statistics are quite flawed. They are not very much in the right merit in the right order. This really reflects of the idea which is brewing in the mind of these people, because they want to completely dismantle the foundation, on the very foundation on which the Indic civilization works. And it is not the attack on Hindutva, it is completely an attack on Hinduism, to be very precise. The whole our tradition and the civilization values or the ethos and everything as such. Now, again, if I dwell a bit backwards into the history in terms of Hindutva, and of course, Hindutva as a word came in 1892 AD by Chandranath Basu. He was a guy who first wrote it as a word. But it might have been written earlier, but so far the written records say that it was in 1892. His Hindutva was nothing but the idea to really make the Hindus stronger, and it was more about the Hindu ethos. And then Savarkar, after four decades or something in 1920s, goes on to use a term against the political Islam which was rising. We were exactly in the same situation, but the situation was much more different because we were under the colonial powers completely that time. So, because the political Islam was just spreading its fangs badly, Khilafat had happened, and India, interestingly, was the only country, or rather, the Kerala was the only state which was going on to support the caliphate, wherein the Turkish people were against the caliphate. They didn't want a caliphate, but our guys from the Kerala wanted to, establish the caliphate. So those kind of ideas were brewing, and the political environment was completely as such that the voting was based on your representations. So Hindus were badly divided that time because a Hindu would come and say that, hey, I am Lingayat, and everyone will have their own, but no one will say Hindu. So the voting representation was going very bad that time for the Hindus, and Hindus were weakening day by day. So that is when Savarkar realized all these issues and came up with the idea that your Hindu nationalism should be the factor. Now, even if it is your idea to really believe in the ethos of Hinduism, that is the state of being Hindu, because Hindutva is nothing but the state of being Hindu. Hindu
Right.
plus Twa. This is what makes Hindutva. So how can you even attack it, irrespective of interpretation? Tomorrow, I cannot go if you are not open to accept that Islam is a religion of terror. Okay, I'm just putting it this way: that if you don't accept it that Islam is a religion of terror, then why should you even say that Hindutva is something which has got to do with extremism and it's against the minorities and all the kind of blah? Why you need to really demonize it? When the whole case is that I'm not trying to be politically correct or incorrect whatsoever it may be, but should any person just go into the airplane and shout the very holy shout? But if one shouts the Jai Shri Ram, there's not going to be a problem. So we see that where the threat is coming. Despite that, why to create this very case and the narrative? It certainly hints towards that they are trying to weaken us badly. And one very strong angle is the angle of the Vatican too. Not many people would know that Andre Truscay comes from an evangelical family. And also we have there's a whole one organization which is at the work, that is the Joshua Project. I don't know how many people know about it.
Right.
And Joshua Project is something very different. And this whole nexus is working so deliberately. They don't have any affinity with the Muslims, right? Even if the Muslims saying that no, the liberals are coming out to help us and all those kind of narratives, they are there in mind. It's not such the case, because they are completely there to make the Christendom come alive. And their idea to work is much more different than let's take a sword and just destroy everything. They create a mindset. They colonize you, and they have been doing it. And we,
Right.
all of the people, are prey to it, including the Muslims, and they are again further attacking on us.
The point is very important, like you said, that Christianity and Islam, they have all indulged in jihad and their crusades, leading to deaths of millions. In the absence of terrorism, we have seen religious terrorism play its own role. We are in the 21st century. Christianity is not on a crusade anymore, but they have chosen different paths, political instruments, to invade people like you and I and our faith systems. But Islam continues the path of the sword, and it takes me back to the sad, situation in Kashmir, when they openly threatened, convert, leave or die. That's an ideology that exists in their various pronouncements, whether you refer to a passage in Quran or Hadith or anywhere else. It's there. We can't hide it. They can't hide it. So I want to shift over to now on the conversation of how do we dismantle this thought-driven terrorism, which is what it is. Because what is important here, that 9/11 happened, the people who did it were not uneducated, hungry folks. They were educated elite engineers who were sophisticated in their approach, in their dealings, who were committed to the cause, who were not, if there was a situation that they could have been swayed by a couple of $1,000 to be as a gift, कि तुम्हारे हम poverty से निकाल रहे हैं, that was not the case. It was ideology driven, whether it's for London bombing, India bombing. These are not done by people who are just swayed by an anger. It's an inbreeding of the thought process that we all are. Behead the non-Muslims, say for example, there one of the paras says that behead the non-Muslims, treat the kafirs, lie to advance your cause. These are all, you can call it the absolutely hard level of political instrument. Knowing what we know now, what do we need to do? And I'll say one thing, the law of unintended consequences played a role here. Thanks to this, Hindus would not be uniting. But today, globally, Hindus are talking that we are not a terrorist organization, nor faith, nor the belief. And that is the issue which Hindus are resisting. A unity is coming. So let's talk about this. How do we address that challenge that they take of exploiting our very processes of democracy?
Yeah. So I completely subscribe to the idea what all these guys who gave us the atrocity literature did. I completely subscribe to the opinion what actually they had. That is the route we need to follow if we should we wish to dismantle the global Islamic Jihad, or in fact even the cause of the Christianity, which is standing upon us with the different kind of weapons in their hand, whether it's internet or whatsoever. They are using all kinds of sources. So it will all begin with creating our own literature. And when I say literature, that people often believe that if we will just talk about the glory of our past, then this is gonna heal the problem. No, it's not gonna do, because our glorious civilization was spoken about even back then, when these marauders were coming in the 8th and the 9th centuries, and so on and on. Now we need to open up the books, what they read, and we need to dismantle the whole narrative about what their origin is. Now we see that there is a whole phenomenon of the ex-Muslims, which is increasing. It's not so slow; it's really increasing, and there's exponential change in how it's happening. Now, while that is happening, we need to also Dhamic people need to really take care of how these books were written. Like I have taken the route of really uncovering the whole idea that Islam was not formed in the southern part of the Arabia, but it happened in the northern part of Arabia. The whole story of Muhammad is flawed, and I don't see that perhaps there might be some Muhammad who just fell prey to this idea and a character was created. So I'm trying to create, and but I'm being very honest. I'm just using the primary sources. Like it all started with when I first questioned that there is no Muhammad. So I was given a Syrian source that was what you're talking, that this source of 640 talks about Muhammad. And when that, then I was given the gold mine. And because once I started looking into those sources, that source, what did it do? It really moved the whole story of Islam from Makkah to the northern Arabia towards the Petra. So once we start doing it, the whole system will be began to be flawed, and it will just tumble down. Because when it comes to Hinduism or Hindu idea, it's so diverse, it's so broad, it has got so many school thoughts that whether you believe in this kind of Ishwar or not, it doesn't matter. Whether you believe in Swarg or not, it doesn't matter. You can still be the Hindu civilization. But what about the Islamic civilization? If we have to say, one may have different opinion, but if we have to say Islamic civilization, then if the whole idea of what is going to happen after the death is going to be dismantled, if this whole idea of what is there in the dome of rock, that Muhammad came, used the horse or the donkey, whatever, the Barak was the dog's name, and he flew up there. And when this whole story is dismantled, then the whole belief system will start crumbling down. At least we have to give the fodder to the people to eat, so that something will really get into the line. And if we keep on attacking the Quranic verses, it's not going to help, because they have the interpretation. They're happy with this. Whether you say that saying as kafir is wrong or not, they don't have a problem in it, but they will see a problem if you say that there was no guy called Muhammad at all. The whole hadith was written 250 years odd after this man Muhammad died. What was happening for 200 years to you didn't write the story of this great man called Muhammad? What was happening? So these things will really unsettle the whole discourse what they are working on, and that should be the way forward, in my opinion.
Yeah, you are. I totally agree with you because, unless and until we begin to inquire and question the truth or interpretation of whatever was happening, you're absolutely right. I have asked this question with some of my Muslim friends. Hey, why don't you show the picture of Muhammad? What was the essential element that prevented him, that he issued a farman that he will be faceless? I mean, what is the reason for that? This is important question because we have a picture of Jesus, right? Picture or an image. It would be more appropriate to call an image. We have an image of Ram. We have an image of Shiva. We have an image of Vishnu. We have created that image. It's not that you and I drew it, but there is an image. Why are you hesitant to show the image of Muhammad? And when somebody does it, you go on an international riot and killing of those who did it. What kind of practice is that? I have asked this question. And what one of the ways to address, maybe dismantling is a stupid word. I mean, Trushke's definition of dismantling Hindutva is a really stupid word. You can't dismantle a conversation of thousands of years of Vedic literature, overnight by blaming on one aspect or the other. But the point is, I also believe in looking within ourselves. I also believe in if we do not change and if we have not learned about our own faith, and if we don't talk about it, then others misinterpret or give a narrative which is we don't like. So, for example, Hinduism, women are maltreated, is the attack. But nobody talks about from our side that Shiv and Parvati are the original examples of gender equality. Ram and Sita, Krishna and Radha, you have innumerable ones, right? But people are peddling the narrative that Krishna was a womanizer because he did Krishna Leela. Nobody understood the concept of Maya and imagination. That's what Krishna was saying, that you can imagine whatever it is, but Radha is one. It is a very interesting thing for people to understand. But I would come up with only one thing is that Islam is what it is. We know now what it is. How do we fix it? How do we address it? And one of the ways is to question the very basis on which they operate in our societies. The famous thing called seeking pandering and appeasement from us and we giving it. So I go back to the question, what must we do to stop the pandering and appeasement and their claim of victimhood? They are perpetually victims. Everybody is a fault of everybody. Everything that happens to them is everybody else's fault, not their own. So how do we assert that part to them that no, you are the problem for your own self? How do we do it? Your thought.
One thing is very essential is that I always believe in an idea that we need to have a level playing ground. So what we have done of late is that, like for example, Audrey wrote something, or say Arfa wrote something, or someone wrote something anywhere. Then we all try to rebut it in our own limitations, and somehow we are not able to convey our messages to even the audience who are reading their works. So it is very important that our rebuttals or any kind of the response what we put across is read by the people who are reading their works too. Second point aspect which is very important is that everyone will need to be very vocal, at least in their homes. When I say at least in their homes, it means that I do have a belief that most of the people who have crossed a certain age limit, who are not in the teenage at least, are matured enough. I have this conviction that they are matured enough and they understand the menace what stands in front of us. But the teenage are the vulnerable people, because even the school system what we have, one may say that the school change kar do pattern ye wo, whatever it may be, it's not so easy to do it. But the given situation, we really need to keep a tab of what's happening in the minds of a teenager, what they're reading, what they're what kind of people they're coming across, what kind of films they are seeing. One may say that I'm talking about censoring or something, but the kind of age where we are living in, censorship is again comes with a context. It might not be censorship, but it might in fact be an idea of making people disciplined or something like that. Because when you are in a war, right, of course, many people would have seen the situation 1962, which my father saw, and you would have seen, and many other people might have seen. But I have not seen what happened in 1962 war. But they say that, of course, there were emergency situations where they were really preparing for the war. We are in a war type situation, so even if these censorships are required, it need be done. It need be brought in. We need to start talking about the literature very openly, that what does Quran talks about. I don't feel very shy that after a certain age of 15 or something, a guy should be given both the books, whether it's Quran and the Bhagavad Gita. There's no problem in that, because unless and what actually has happened with our generation, especially, or maybe a generation a bit older, is that while we all grew with the Gayatri mantra, Om Bhurvaswa, and how you always talk about the nature, and it's about the sun, the Savitur, and likewise our all mantras, you always talk about the peace everywhere and goodness for everyone. You never say that that God is smaller or inferior because you worship Krishna, that you also worship Ram. Someone might be having someone as an Ishtadev, despite that he's worshipping the other god too. But when it comes to Islam, when a child grows, he is coming up with the La ilaha Muhammad Rasulullah. It happens 5 times. So what it does is that even if you are so educated, you might not be having a radical thought, but somehow a thought has got embedded in your mind that other gods are false gods and they are not the right one. And to get radicalized or to act, it just take a moment. A small moment can radicalize you and get the things done out of your hand. So yes, we need to equip our guys with books on the from the both side. Otherwise, they will always keep on failing to understand the thing, like what we saw in Nagpur. The image just surfaced, I think it was yesterday or today, where people are trying to make the girls wear the hijab and whatnot, and they are saying that they're fighting out with the people who are coming to defense, that no, it's our choice, who are you to say, and all those things. We are not teenager, and supposedly they are Hindus. That's what they're claiming. So these things need to be fixed. Unless we fix it, because the politicians will always harp around whatever comes at a ease. If appeasement is coming at a ease, they will just harp around, irrespective of which political party it may be. That's the beastie nature of the politics. That's how
Right.
they will be. So we have to set our discourse right, rather than expecting the politicians to do the job for us. And if वो बोलते हैं ना कि दुकानदार और ग्राहक वाली बात है कि the kind of grahak which will be there, that's how the shopkeepers will start behaving. So we have to set that right first in order. Then perhaps I hope that this will set the discourse right. Smaller step, but it is the way forward for me.
This is a brilliant point, actually, what you brought about, because my favorite word in this matter is demand reciprocity.
Yes.
That's very key, and I tell you, because this is so essential, that you pandering and appeasement begins. De do yaar, wo chup rahenge. But we do not realize that every time you give, the next time you give more. And I remember soon after 9/11, there was somebody who told me, let his religion be thought of but not known. I would put it that way. He told me, आप हिंदू लोग बहुत शरीफ हैं, आप शांति के लिए कुछ भी करेंगे, और हम उसी नाम पे आपकी बर्बादी करेंगे. This is a very brilliant. This is told to me. I'm not making it up. It's not a story. It happened with me. That आप हिंदू लोग बहुत शरीफ लोग हैं, शांति के नाम पे आप कुछ भी करेंगे. And we see that happen. As a result of which, you very rightly said that only politicians can do whatever they can do. Let's not expect too much from them. They are not our my bab. We are our own. And it's time for us. As Bhagavad Gita invokes, Krishna invokes all the time, individually, your role is important, Arjun. You have to do what you got to do. That's the sentence told in many Hollywood movies. A man got to do what he got to do, right? So the question is that we also, at an individual and collective level, have to wake up. That's what is important. We have to wake up. And you very rightly said, unless until we know about our own thing, we fall defensive. But forget about others who attack us. Even Hindus don't know that there is nothing wrong with Hindutva. तत्व में कुछ गलती नहीं है बिकॉज उसके पीछे त के पास त्व आया है यू नो दैट्स इट पर त्व का भी अपना अर्थ है उसको समझिए पहले so if we don't understand that we will feel that we are attacked all the time and we will become defensive about it and that's a failing strategy so taking this step forward I believe that we must people like you and I and others must begin to ask questions and making inquiries. Is this what you believe in? Like I asked this question of an investment banker friend of mine, who when he asked me, why is Islam misunderstood? I said it's not misunderstood. It is understood exactly the way you are conveying it. So he said, what do you mean? I said, here is a very simple question. We are living in 21st century. Do you still believe in the concept of 72 virgins? He went quiet for 10 seconds. And I said, you got your answer. Because even as an educated person, you are not able to emphatically or otherwise deny that there is no concept of seven. We need to begin to ask and make those inquiries. And I want to say this again, that their process of invading us has a very strong dimensions and borrowed from political Islam, the thought of political Islam, which several people have talked about. I go back to the fundamental question: why is the political system, the leadership, bending backwards to accommodate? Is it for the vote bank, or is it the pious hope कि शायद वो सुधर जाएंगे? What is it? What do you think?
I think it's the other thing around that's what is running through the political thought processes right now, and I always see that somehow there's a very distinct feature between BJP and Congress. Congress can work with a word of one man, but BJP, unfortunately, fortunately, though it might be shown that it's the game of a guy, but there are so many people around, there's so many ideas. Perhaps I'm sure that I don't know if even 50% of the people would even be aware about the ideas of Hindutva. They might be even aware about the historicity of the drift between Savarkar and RSS. There were multiple things which runs in the background in the veins of the BJP, which I'm sure that many are not aware about it. And one may give a kind of a consolation to them that it has nothing to do with Hindutva, so why should they even know about it? But the
Right.
problem which comes is that the situation where we are in, we choose BJP with the idea that all the guys will be completely open about the idea of Hindutva. They will be knowing that what exactly needs to be done. And even if 30% of people are coming out and say that, we need to take this route, and that route somehow looks a suicidal one. And because because I do believe that they have a hope that, अगर आप कंप्यूटर पकड़ा दोगे, लैपटॉप पकड़ा दोगे, तो फिर वो बंदूक नहीं चलेगी. बट कहानी वैसे नहीं होती है, बिकॉज वन हु हैज read Islam properly and one who has really given a thought on, including right from beginning, because जैसे if one looks in the creation of हदीस के जो क्रिएशन हो रहे थे, वो क्या होता था कि जब जितने वार होते थे उतनी हदीस की क्रिएशन होती थी. और जब जैसे हदीस वे मेजरली रिटन बाय द अब्बासिड्स, उससे पहले उमैय्यद्स थे. सो अब्बासिद जब उमैयद के बीच में लड़ाई थी, उसके बाद उन्होंने हदीस लिखना शुरू किया, एंड दे चूज द टू क्राफ्ट द स्टोरी ऑफ मोहम्मद इन अ डिफरेंट वेज. They saw it as a war manual. Hadith was actually the war manual if one looks into the history, क्योंकि जितने वार होते थे उतनी हदीस प्रिपेयर होती थी. और हदीस को लिखा किसने? मैक्सिमम पीपल हु केम फ्रॉम अ स्लेव बैकग्राउंड, उनके हदीस हैं, उनके थॉट्स हैं जो किताबों में डाले गए हैं. तो उनके लिए रिडेम्पशन था. उनको बोला जाता था कि तुम जितनी कहानियां तैयार करोगे, मतलब लड़ाई के जितने बारूद तैयार करोगे, उतना आपको रिडीम करेंगे हम. दैट्स हाउ दिस लिटरेचर वाज क्रिएटेड. सो द क्रिएशन ऑफ लिटरेचर इटसेल्फ हैज एन इंटेंशन टू fight the world around. establish one idea of the Abbasids, which was there. That was the whole intention. And the current regime of the Muslims, or the current Muslims, are the slave of those Abbasids. Whatever happened that time, they are still the slave of it. Because Islam, it might look a bit over ambitious to people. अगर मैं बोलूँ इस्लाम बदल सकता है, but actually इस्लाम इसलिए बदल सकता है क्योंकि इस्लाम वही है जो शुरुआत उमैयद ने की थी, क्योंकि अब्बास ने उनको मार पीट के सब खत्म कर दिया. You don't have a single literature of the Umayyads available with us. So एक बार मैंने I wrote an essay that Muslims need to come up with their not in my name. Because भैया हम तो demographics बदल नहीं सकते. We can't change the whole demographics the way it is. We have to live with the Muslims, we have to live with the Christian, and that is how the things are. But how do we choose an idea of Savarkar that still the problem need not be there, though people are living? So it has to be start with the idea like how so Rizvi started that Quran ke kuch verses hata do, but khair all the Abbasid slaves kya kar sakte hain? We can't do anything. It will just not be implemented the way he wanted. And the politicians, or what to say about the politicians, because I'm sure that not many politicians forget about. I'm not expecting them to know Hindutva to that great extent, or the seminal works of the Savarkar. So I can't even expect that they would be even knowing that how Islam was created and what is the modus operandi on which it works, the way the things are going on. I कल को कोई politician जाके ये भी बोल सकता है कि kalma or is a very secular thing. He might be from BJP. A person might say it. It can happen. I'm very sure. So again, I will not expect so much from the politicians. I am hopeless when it comes to fighting the political Islam. I have many good things, hope on many other good things which will happen. I am hopeful about our academia and the stuff, but no hope when it comes to fighting the political Islam with the current dispensation. Vibhuti, you are muted, I think.
Oh, I got muted. I'm sorry. It's an extraordinary day. So, I was saying that you are absolutely right that we have to begin the process with inquiry. And I use the word reciprocity with all seriousness because you and I, every individual, must question the basic essentials of what they say. So I have asked my Muslim friends, I talk very openly. I said, why don't you, if you want to be understood well, drop the word kafir from your language? Why not? Why talk about beheading the non believers? That is what is important for us to do at an individual as well as collective level. Your religion may be a religion of peace. I'm not seeing that peace. Your peace is for your own convenience. I'm bringing it to the 21st century conversation. You are sharing a lot of knowledge of the past. I'm talking about what's happening on the ground today in the 21st century. And I asked them this question: does Sharia or Hadith say use this? No. Why are you using it? Does fundamental questions? Is Islamic cancer any sweeter than a Hindu cancer or a Christian cancer? No, it's not. And that's how you impose or bring about your own thoughts on them, that the universality of the principles of living and life are the same. Our blood is red, our teeth is white. Hair is black, and then it turns white at some point in time. Point of the matter is that if we simplify these matters of conversation, that's the reason why the rise of ex-Muslims is happening. Because somewhere along the line, the advancements in science and technology is breaking all the ignorance and fear that people had, which was religion imposed. तुम्हें heaven जाओगे या hell जाओगे? Nobody has seen. Where is heaven? Where is hell? I asked this question. That's why I say I'm using myself as an example to you. that I ask my Christian friends, hey, when was the last time you went to heaven? Can you share your experience? You know, or whatever happened to the ex who went to hell? We have to begin to do that, and we have to deny them these kind of special privileges that comes, like you said, that people, politicians will heap for a vote. They are dying for their vote, and that's what they are playing upon. So the question is that when they come in our system, so all these refugees are coming all over the world, and they will all demand halal food and their sharia whichever country they go to. So I ask this question: why aren't you going to Islamic Sharia country? Why are you running away from Afghanistan where Taliban is trying to bring Sharia rule? It's part of your process. How do we make that inquiry a commonplace conversation?
Yeah, and it's a big problem because everyone we have seen a lot of Muslim commentators going on to the screen of the TV channels and go on to say that in support of the Sharia. And when this Taliban issue came up, we also started hearing that there are different versions of Sharia. But but the truth is that irrespective of how many versions of Sharia you may have, and you may say that there is a problem with the translation and something, you will reach to a point where at least 20% of this is really problematic, because it comes to the principalities, it comes to the fundamentals. Like for example, Sharia really allows the stoning of women for certain kind of crime. So this is a situation. Now, how much does it depends on the interpretation, right? It's an action. You can have interpretation whether a person need to be made to wear white or black. You can have translation issues over there, but someone needs to be stoned to death. There is no principal difference in it, right? There can be no doubt. And when it comes to the issues of the land, then they would say that, because in the Sanskrit you say that at times you say that Gaum means the sunlight, and you say that Gaumans is not prescribed in the Vedas, which actually a lot of people has misinterpreted that. They thought that go what is written as sunlight. They thought that it is a cow, and that's what's to be consumed. And so you can't have the same parallel line for both the cases, because Arabic was very much underdeveloped language even when all these literature was being written. It was not a very well developed language. You can't have so many multiple translations to the things, and they drew a lot of things from the Hebrew. They drew a lot of things from the languages which were being spoken in the Petra. So they have impact of the situation which was happening in that localities. And those localities and Sharia essentially was written for the urban sector, because it cannot work in rural sector. And they had adopted it from a lot of Christian ideas. Actually, Christians initially also had all these code of conducts, and Roman conduct really had those things. If you read about the works of the Constantine, the kind of course which he had laid, they are not
Right,
very pleasing one. So they
right,
come on a lot of parallel lines. So there is no point of misinterpretation. There is no point of mistranslation. Fundamentally, it is flawed. And when these situations are really upfront of us, then if you remove the concept of kafir per se, if you remove the concept of really the crimes which are prescribed for as per the Islamic law, then is Islam gonna exist? Because the Islam itself was based on a principle of kafir, the mu'min, and that's how it comes across. So if they stop calling us kafir, then will they be Muslim enough? Because these are the dictates of Allah which was given to them. Now, even if they accept this peacefully, that still we can be the Muslim enough, we can just take a historical footprint that something happened in the past and we are following, we are just worshipping in a different way, and then the things would go around. But those 5 times worshipping also has got a lot of the connotations which are against us, which are against the people so-called kafir. So functionally, the whole system is gonna collapse. And it might be a bit too idealistic to say, but if we start amending this situation, then Islam will not exist if these things are done. And that's the fear what they always come across, and that's why the ulemas or the imams or whoever they are, they just keep on putting across the fear in the minds of the Muslims, because that's how this whole industry is working. They do have their political Islam itself is an industry. The whole, like, If you start fragmenting it, whether it's halal is a completely different industry altogether. It draw a lot of economic benefits out of it, and so are many such factors. So and that is what it leads to the insurgency, and insurgency is what leads to the business of the armed dealers. So because armed dealers can't rely on the normal one, so this whole vicious circle, the cycle is so ugly. It's not only about the stopping of the Islam, but they have to keep the Islam going the way it is. Because the moment the concept of kafir goes, then what's the point of fighting in the Kashmir? What's the point of fighting in anywhere else, right? And we as India can definitely fight out these ideas if we take the stance at Israel, because we somehow always believe that have been very soft. Of course, there were many landmark the decisions which were made, but like ISIS was very close by to Israel, but they never attacked the Israel, right? They could never. They never had, finger pointed towards them. So even the Islamists fear the Israel. Even the people living within Israel fear the. It's not that the Muslims are not living in Israel. They have it. They have multiple, they have different kind of population. So we need to have that mindset. This will start changing the whole, bringing the whole paradigm shift.
You said things which are very dear to me because I practice that part of it. Like you have to begin to question the essential teachings itself, and the thought that you said that if they change, they will vanish. They are operated on a fear basis. The Umas and others, they brainwash you to believing you will disappear, and they know that their premise, the foundations of their faith, is based on remarkably weak ground, that it can be sustained only through use of sword or brainwashing. And that's what the whole thing is. You talked about prayers of 5 times. What I realize is that, you know, I gave this example to somebody. Somebody asked me, "आप लोग तो पूजा भी नहीं करते हो रोज के रोज." आप लोग. So I said, yeah, that doesn't matter. How many times you pray doesn't matter, but what you do, that defines you. That's what God rewards you for, your actions. You are known by your actions. So I gave the example that आपका बंदा 5 बार नमाज पढ़ के बाजार में जाके अपने को उड़ाता है, 20 लोग मरते हैं, 100 घायल होते हैं। मैं तो मंदिर गया नहीं आज, मैं हफ्ते में 1 बार जाता हूँ या महीने में 1 बार जाता हूँ, लेकिन उस समय में मैंने 15 लोगों को हॉस्पिटल पहुंचाया। तो आपकी डेफिनेशन के हिसाब से खुदा का बंदा कौन है, मैं या आपका बंदा? He said, you are performing God's job. My point is that unless and until we begin to confront them, and they do know that at the moment, I'm saying this very bluntly, at the moment they realize that in true sense of the term, very few people who are non-Islamic likes them, because they have begun to understand we are living in a world of technology where people can search anything you want. There is no search which leads to Hindus indulging in violence all over the world to assert their Shiva theory or Ganeshji's theory or Kali theory and everything else. We are happy within ourselves. So I say this to people, that if you want authentic peace in the world, accept just one tenet of Hinduism, that is respect and acceptance of whoever you pray to, whatever you pray to, whether you pray 10 times a day or none at all. So whether you are a Ganesh Bhakt, Hanuman Bhakt, Krishna Bhakt, Ram Bhakt, doesn't matter. None of us fight with each other, and they are all living in the same temple. And I go to the temple, I bow my head to some god. Others are not coming to with a bhala to kill me because I didn't pray to them on that day. This is the way we have to make the universality of our faith to others, that we don't kill in the name of our faith, but we will protect our dharma whenever it comes to. So the question comes back to, the last question would be, I consider, in my opinion, is that this is the moment of dharma yuddha for me, for us. It ought to be the moment of dharma yuddha for us. And what must happen, that we contest and indulge the teachings of Mahabharata and Ramayana to bring back the dharma yuddha in us, that we have to protect and defend our own beautiful integrity. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I always say that we are in a battleground, and But that's why I initially cited that there has to be certain kind of censorship. There has to be certain kind of disciplinary acts within us, which is going to set the thing in a streamlined order. Because the things right now are very haphazard, and it's more or less haphazard because we definitely don't live in the era of Mahabharat or Ramayana. It was much more easy to indulge into the dharma yudh back then, because perhaps the forces which are surrounding us right now, whether it's Islamist or any, if I put it just under one word, the Judeo-Christian Islamic forces were not that prominent that time. Of course, they were not there, but we have got a very different case. And when that is the case, then we have to equally become too smart while indulging with the people around. And when I say smart, it means that one needs to really grow clever enough. They need to be very much thorough with the understanding of the theology of the other side. And in the Dharma Yudh, it means that the right now the dharma would be to really understand that what is the modus operandi of the people on the other side. Our dharma will be defined also by the ideas of the Chanakya. And in fact, because we are talking about Mahabharat, in Mahabharat, when Sri Krishna gave the Bhagavad Gita Gyan to Arjun, that time Arjun, before that, he had just before the war, he had actually gone on to look at whole of the ground, that who is there, who are his enemies. Right now, we don't indulge into this act of looking at the enemies. Moreover, we are always indulged in trying to analyze at how powerful we are or how good we are doing, but we have always failed to really critically assess who our enemies are. And once that job is done, the things will really simplify, and we will know what is the way ahead. Because you can't attack, or rather than attack, you can't really bring down the Islamist ideas unless you really know what exactly Islamist
That's
means.
right.
Otherwise, what's the point? There's no point even. You can't fight Islamists claiming that I have got a great civilization. It's not going to help us. You need a completely different way of doing this war, and that will come from understanding what they are about and what they do.
Absolutely correct. And we started the program late today, and I wanted to end it now because this is not a conversation which will happen one time. It has to happen many times. And the few points that emerged very clear is that you have to begin individually and collectively. Do your bit. If somebody does something individually, don't be critical of that. Let it all, let the thousand flowers bloom. There is a famous statement. So if we begin to question individually in your individual interactions, there is always a thing called a multiplier effect. If you make a change with one person, then it is 1 to the power of n, it can move. So just commenting on somebody that it will not work individually, the collective change happens. It's the accumulation of so many individual changes. You standing your ground, you being the element of change. That's very important. It's there in Bhagavad Gita. So appreciate and admire people are trying to do individually and collectively thereafter. But here is one point which I wanted to say, which Aabhasji mentioned to you here. Get to know what you want to change. You can, unless and until you know what needs to be changed, you won't know what to change. Merely saying it should not rain today doesn't matter. If the nature configures in a manner that there is going to be rain, it will. Is the question is we have to prepare ourselves for that. And to that end, I will also appeal to one of the things. To all the Hindus, I appeal. Let us support whoever is doing whatever to advance our cause. It comes very easy to us. We become very impatient. We are very critical of आभास जी विभूति जी ओ ये नहीं कर रहे वो नहीं कर रहे हैं आभास जी को और विभूति को करने दीजिए वो जो कर रहे हैं if you agree with that support it if you don't agree with it find somebody else who echoes your thought so whether I have a common appeal one of the reasons that we get divided is that we are very immediately, unnecessarily critical of whoever is doing whatever. So whether it is Sanjay Dikshit, Gaurav Pradhan, Major Gaurav Arya, Savio Rodriguez, Aabhas Maladiyar, Rajiv Mishra, Tarek Fatah, myself, whoever you like, support. That's it. Whether it's the Hindu American Foundation or Kohana or Hindu Students Council, if you like something, join that effort. Don't sit by your sofa and criticize. That's one of our undoings. We are very easily critical of things that people are trying to do. Even the intellectuals, they try to short circuit the other one because they want to look better than the other. But remember one thing, there's a test match going on in England right now. Who is more important in the team, the bowler or the batsman? Think about it. The middle order batsman. There was a time when even Sachin Tendulkar had to come as a replacement bowler, and he has taken wickets. The point which I'm trying to drive at, you have to consider yourself as a team, and every individual contributes to the team, is part of the team. Without the individual contribution, team doesn't happen. So if the opening batsman doesn't score a run, the bowler doesn't have anything to bowl to. So think about it from that point of view. We have to become a team. Dismantling evil is required, and we have to begin to question. Thank you very much for putting up with us today, the inconvenience. Aabhasji, thank you very much for coming in the last moment. And this was a very useful conversation. We'll continue to have this dialogue because Hindus need to be motivated individually and collectively. And what is wrong must be dismantled. If we feel it is wrong, let's dismantle it. Let's contribute to its resurgence in a new shape. Thank you. Namaste. Satyameva
Namaste.
Jayate. Thank you.